How to Speak English Confidently. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. The channel that brings you simple, practical, and engaging lessons to help you learn English more effectively. I'm really excited to have you join me today for this special session. Whether you're just starting your English learning journey or you've been practicing for some time, today's topic is one that applies to everyone. Speaking English confidently. Now, I know that for many of you, speaking English can feel like the most challenging part of learning the language. You might feel nervous, unsure of yourself, or afraid of making mistakes. But here's the good news. Confidence in speaking English is something you can develop no matter your current level. And in this session, we're going to explore all the different ways you can start speaking English with more confidence, step by step. Before we dive in, I just want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. If you find this session helpful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share it with friends, and leave a comment letting us know your thoughts. Your feedback really helps us grow, and it motivates us to bring you even more valuable content. All right, now let's get started with today's topic: how to speak English confidently, the importance of confidence in speaking English. So why is confidence so important when it comes to speaking English? Well, let's break it down. Confidence isn't just about feeling good when you speak, though that's part of it. Confidence impacts how well you communicate and how much you're able to learn and grow as a speaker. For example, think about the last time you hesitated to speak English. Maybe you were in a conversation and you knew what you wanted to say, but you felt nervous or uncertain. You might have been afraid of making a mistake, so you stayed quiet instead. That's something that happens to so many English learners, and it's totally normal. But the key to improving is understanding that it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, making mistakes is one of the best ways to learn. Confidence allows you to push past that fear of mistakes. It gives you the courage to speak up, to try out new words and phrases, and to have conversations, even if you're not 100% perfect. And the more you practice, the more confident you become. It's a cycle of growth. Now, let me give you a more concrete example. Let's say you're in a meeting at work and you need to present an idea in English. You've prepared your points and you know your material, but when it's your turn to speak, you start to feel nervous. Maybe you worry about your pronunciation or that you might not remember the right vocabulary. If you're lacking confidence, those worries can overwhelm you and you might freeze up. But if you've worked on building your confidence, you'll be able to calm your nerves and deliver your message clearly and effectively, even if it's not perfect. According to a study, about 75% of English learners experience some level of anxiety when speaking. This means most people feel the same way you do. But here's the encouraging part. 90% of those learners reported that their confidence grew significantly once they began speaking regularly, even if they made mistakes. This shows how crucial practice and persistence are in building confidence. One of the biggest barriers to speaking confidently in English is the fear of making mistakes. This fear can hold you back from practicing, which is the very thing that will help you improve. So how do you overcome this fear? Let's dive into that. First, let's acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes when learning a new language. It's part of the process. Even native speakers make mistakes. But the difference is, they don't let those mistakes stop them from communicating. They know that the goal of communication isn't to be perfect, it's to be understood. Think about a time when you were listening to someone else speak English, and maybe they made a mistake in their grammar or pronunciation. Did it stop you from understanding what they were trying to say? Probably not, right? The same is true for you when you speak. Most of the time, people are focused on what you're saying, not how perfectly you're saying it. Here's a practical tip. Embrace your mistakes as learning opportunities. Instead of feeling embarrassed when you make a mistake, try to see it as a chance to improve. Maybe you mispronounce a word, or you use the wrong verb tense. That's okay. Each mistake is a stepping stone toward fluency. I remember a story about one of my students, Maria. She was always so nervous about speaking English in front of her colleagues because she was afraid of making mistakes. But one day, we had a conversation where I encouraged her to just start speaking without worrying about being perfect. She started slow, but with practice, she began speaking more fluently and confidently. Sure, she made a few mistakes along the way, but guess what? Her colleagues still understood her, and she felt a huge sense of accomplishment. Today, Maria is giving presentations in English without hesitation. Here's another important point. Research shows that people who focus on communicating their message rather than on speaking perfectly are more successful in learning a new language. So if your goal is to communicate, don't let the fear of mistakes hold you back. Remember, confidence comes from practice, and practice often involves making a few mistakes along the way. Now that we've talked about why confidence is important and how to overcome the fear of mistakes, let's move on to some practical strategies you can use to build your confidence in speaking English. 1. Start small and build up. If you're feeling nervous about speaking English, it can help to start with small, manageable conversations. For example, you could start by talking to yourself in English at home. This might sound a little funny, but it's actually a great way to practice. You can describe what you're doing, talk about your day, or even practice introducing yourself. Once you feel more comfortable, you can move on to speaking with others. Start with short conversations with people you trust. Maybe you have a friend who is also learning English, or you can find a language exchange partner. These are great ways to practice in a low-pressure environment. As you continue to practice, your confidence will grow, and you'll be able to handle longer, more complex conversations. But remember, it's all about taking small steps. 2. Use positive affirmations. Another powerful tool for building confidence is using positive affirmations. These are short, positive statements that you can repeat to yourself to boost your confidence. For example, you could say, "I am confident in my ability to speak English," or "I can communicate effectively in English." Saying these affirmations regularly can help rewire your brain to believe in your ability to speak confidently. Studies have shown that people who use positive affirmations are more likely to feel confident and succeed in their goals. 3. Practice active listening. Listening is a key part of speaking confidently. The more you listen to native speakers, the more you'll pick up on the natural rhythm and flow of the language. You'll also learn new vocabulary and expressions that you can use in your own conversations. A great way to practice active listening is by watching English movies, listening to podcasts, or even having conversations with native speakers. Pay attention to how they form sentences, how they use intonation, and how they express their ideas. This will help you feel more comfortable and confident when it's your turn to speak. 4. Record yourself speaking. One of the best ways to track your progress and build confidence is to record yourself speaking English. It might feel a little strange at first, but it's an incredibly effective strategy. When you listen back to the recording, you'll be able to hear what you did well and what you can improve. Plus, you'll likely find that you sound better than you think. Try recording yourself reading a short paragraph or talking about a topic for a few minutes each day. Over time, you'll notice your improvement, and that will give you a confidence boost. Real-life examples of English learners building confidence. Let's talk about some real-life examples of English learners who have built their confidence and seen great success as a result. Take, for example, Rohit, a young professional from India, who struggled with speaking English when he first started his job at an international company. He knew he needed to improve his confidence, so he set small goals for himself. Every day, he would have a short conversation in English with his colleagues. At first, it was just a few sentences, but over time, he built up to having full conversations. He also started attending English speaking clubs and practicing regularly. Within 6 months, Rohit was able to give presentations at work in English, and his colleagues noticed a huge difference in his confidence. Now, he's seen as a leader at his company, all because he pushed through his initial fear and practiced consistently. Or consider Hannah, a student who used to avoid speaking in her English classes because she was afraid of making mistakes. She decided to take a different approach by embracing her mistakes and using them as learning opportunities. She started participating more in class, asking questions, and speaking up during discussions. Over time, her confidence grew, and she even began helping other students who were struggling with their speaking skills. The role of environment in building confidence. Your environment plays a big role in your confidence levels. If you surround yourself with people who encourage and support your learning, you'll feel more confident speaking English. On the other hand, if you're in an environment where you feel judged or criticized, it can be harder to build that confidence. That's why it's so important to find a community or a group of people who support your English learning journey. This could be a language exchange group, an English class, or even an online community where you can practice speaking without fear of judgment. In fact, studies show that learning in a supportive environment can increase your confidence by as much as 50%. When you know that the people around you are there to help and encourage you. It makes a huge difference in how you feel when speaking English. Keeping a growth mindset. Lastly, let's talk about the importance of having a growth mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that your abilities, including your ability to speak English, can improve with effort and practice. When you have a growth mindset, you don't see mistakes as failures. You see them as opportunities to learn and grow. People with a growth mindset are more likely to keep practicing even when they face challenges. They understand that confidence doesn't come overnight. It's something you build over time. According to research, people with a growth mindset are more successful in learning a new language because they're willing to keep trying, even when it's difficult. So if you want to build your confidence in speaking English, it's important to adopt this mindset. All right, that brings us to the end of today's session on how to speak English confidently. We've covered a lot of ground today, from understanding the importance of confidence to overcoming the fear of mistakes, to practical strategies you can use to build your confidence. Remember, speaking English confidently is a journey, and it takes time. But with practice, persistence, and the right mindset, you can absolutely get there. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and keep pushing yourself to speak, even when it feels challenging. You'll be amazed at how much progress you can make. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found today's session helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. And don't forget to leave a comment. I'd love to hear about your experiences with speaking English and what strategies have helped you build your confidence. Until next time, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, you can speak English confidently.